Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to Healthy Living Central Florida. I'm your host, Gina Horan. Central Florida has long been a retirement destination. We've got hot weather, we've got things to do, indoor, outdoor activities, take your grandkids to Disney. But there's also sort of a lot of challenges and a little bit of a darker side to retiring here in most places, but also here in Central Florida. And here to talk with us about that today is Chief Steve Hunt with Lady Lake Police. How are you? Welcome.
I'm great, Gina. I'm so happy to be here to share our story about the town of Lady Lake and all we've got going on in that beautiful community.
I love that. So you're originally not from Central Florida. You're from Bangor, Maine. I'm trying to get the accent down. Talk about a little bit about your background, where you're from, and how you got started in law enforcement.
Sure. Interestingly so, we've been in Florida for 5 years today. So October 1st, that we came down in 2020, and so today marks that 5th year anniversary. And so I started my police career at a very early age, actually 1 month after high school in 1983, and worked in a small town where I grew up outside of Bangor called VZ, and it's in between the Orono and Bangor, where the University of Maine at Orono is at, and Stephen King is the home. Stephen King is from Bangor, and it was just a very wonderful community. Bangor is significant in Maine in that it is the third largest town or city, and it has significance geographically because it's a destination place for people to come and to go to the hospital, to have all the services that they would need, including entertainment. So even though there's only 100 police officers at Bangor, I kind of compare it to Orlando in Florida, right? So in significance relative to the state. So I started my career there. I was attending University of Maine at Orono, going to school there, and then kind of got bit by the police bug. And so I went full-time in the winter of 1985 and essentially 1986. So just coming up on my 40-year anniversary of police work. Worked for 30 years for the city of Bangor, retired as a police lieutenant there, spent about 10 years of that assigned to different drug agencies, specifically Maine Drug Enforcement, as well as a year or so with DEA. So that was sort of my background there. I had a very blessed career. I was very, very thankful. Then a couple events took place after I retired. I was kind of working in the sheriff's department doing drug work, and I had a heart attack.
Well, that's news.
Yeah, on Christmas. Yeah, that was cool. Then we had a couple of I'm good, right? Good. And a couple other personal tragedies. Then I found out my wife was having this online affair with a guy named Zillow, and I was like, so she was addicted to this. So anyways, here we are. So we took care of everybody that we needed to take care of, our family and so forth. And I kid you, I've got this wonderful, amazing wife, but she was always on Zillow. So realtor.com.
You had me going there for a second, Chief Hunt. That's hilarious. So you and I graduated from high school around the same time, and we've had very different paths. Okay. I wonder always what drove you, or what keeps you in law enforcement? Like, what's that driving factor? Besides giving me a bad time and trying to make me think that your wife had an affair.
So police work is such a noble, awesome profession. And, but it's satisfying to me, right? So personally, it's funny. I attended this training session as a young policeman, and the instructor said, "Who wants to be a policeman here because they want to help people?" And I put my hand up in the air, right, because I wanted to help people.
Yeah.
And he said,
the old-fashioned way, right?
Exactly, yeah. Right. And the guy kind of sort of beat me up a little bit. And he said, "No, really, you're here because you've got a inflated sense of self, and you've got a big ego, and that's what you want to be, and you want to know things and be in charge and be involved in the action." And as I started to self-reflect, he actually was correct, right? So he said, "There's nothing wrong with that, but just having it in check, right? And being, so it's not about lauding over people. It's really about helping people, but also, nobody likes a bully, so we don't like bullies.
Right. But I mean, you can walk and chew gum at the same time. You can want to help people, and you can also, you have to have some kind of a sense of your purpose and yourself in order to, do this.
So I quickly found that this was my purpose to some degree, right? And it was an opportunity to make a big difference in people's lives, personally, professionally, and all of that. And so as my career developed, I had a gift, I think, for leadership and for supervising and being a coordinator of the wheel. I didn't have to be the best detective or the best investigator, but but I was good at putting all the pieces of the puzzle and building the team. So
I love that.
Yeah, so it was really cool. And then we moved to Florida, like I said, 5 years ago. I went to work for the state, working for Department of Financial Services and doing auto insurance investigations, fraud investigations.
Okay.
Yeah, in downtown Orlando, right? And kind of had a little segment up here. And again, I told you I was a policeman for a long time. I was a pretty decent cop, but it really was not in my wheelhouse, right? So I wasn't really wonderful at it. And then all of a sudden, this opportunity about 3 years ago opened up at Lady Lake. And I had a connection with the town manager, who was a former Bangor PD officer. And he was leaving about the time that I started. And then our paths kind of crossed a few times along the way, and we were casual friends at best. But he was able to kind of observe my career over time as it was in Maine. And there was a need at Lady Lake, and they were in some transition. And so we reached out, and here we are.
And here you are. So talk a little bit about the differences. I'm sure law enforcement is basically the same, everywhere. But what are the nuances, the differences between your former state of Maine and then now here in Central Florida and Lady Lake?
So that's kind of, and it was interesting, as I kind of thought about that question a little bit.
I mean, we're not dissing anyone here today.
No, we're not, and I'm not either. And it's funny, I was fortunate enough to go to the FBI National Academy in 2009, and when I went there, I was very curious to how Bangor, Maine would measure up to the rest of the other agencies throughout the country, 250 other policemen, right? And I quickly found that I didn't have to apologize to anybody. We were doing it as well, if not better, than most places, and that might be somewhat typical to New England.
But the hard work ethic.
Right. But people are very stoic and somewhat standoffish. We had a very fortunate, blessed relationship with the community in Bangor. They liked us for the most part, and we provided good services. We were kind of the peace police, and we had a good favor with folks. Then I came to Florida.
Yeah.
And so just as before I became a policeman down here, I'm still in the application processes and so forth. We live in Eustis, and I would watch how people interacted with the policemen in Florida and how they, we'd see people, cops at stores, and people were very nice to them. And then I got to experience for myself, and Florida really embraces their police officers. Then I get to Lake County, and they really hold us in favor. And then I get to Lady Lake. So Lady Lake has 17,000 people, and it's a place where the villages started. So we have the historical side. So about half of our population are villagers, and we have the largest American Legion Hall post in the country, and they say actually nationally, right? So
we've done stories about them. They're
amazing post, right? And so they're really cool people, and they love their police officers, right? So it's really fascinating in a time when society oftentimes is critical, hypercritical, and somewhat.
Well, you're under a microscope more,
Very much so. And we occasionally be under attack by people that don't like the police or want to be agitators to some degree, and we get defended so strongly by the people in our community because they appreciate what we do and the level of service and the relationship that we built with that community. So I just feel so blessed to be here. I've never been able to give back to law enforcement what it's given me over my career, and so it's just an awesome opportunity to share. And as as you're in that later stage in your career, I tell people 5 stages, 5 different steps to every job we take, right? So you take a new position, like you may or not, you learn it. Then you have editing, mastering, harvesting, and then mentoring, right? So I was a really good policeman, in 1996, and I was all right in 2006, and then in 2016 I was really on my game. But then I take a new job, right, as a new police chief, right? And we come in and we make a lot of changes. I can't wait to share those stories with you, but again, learning, editing, mastering, harvesting, mentoring, right? So that's mentoring stage is pretty cool, right? To get to share and to give back in what you've learned and the things that worked, and more importantly, sometimes the things that didn't work or the things you do different. And so it's just a wonderful stage, and I'm so thankful to be here to share that story with you.
I love that. So when we come back, we're going to talk about something that's very important to me, senior scams. You're going to share all of your tips of how to sort of talk to seniors and retirees about what's going on out there and these nefarious characters. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with Chief Hunt of Lady Lake Police. Hey everyone, welcome back. We're here with Lady Lake's Chief Steve Hunt, and we're going to talk about senior scams. Now, I have to tell you, the bugaboo, I cannot stand it. My mom, bless her, will not believe me that when a phone call with a weird zip code or area code from the Philippines or something is trying to get her to buy a new roof or whatever. And I keep telling her, or something from the Social Security Administration or whatever, they never, ever will call you. They send a letter or, and she doesn't believe me. So this is a personal thing that I'm asking you to do just for my sanity.
True.
Talk to me about senior scams, what's happening these days, and what we can do to help prevent them.
Absolutely. So Lady Lake, the villages, the retirement communities that are in Florida are so targeted because they are trusting, lovable people.
Yes.
They've worked hard to save and to have their money.
And the scams are getting better and better.
They're so good and talented, right? So there's 2 or 3 that come to my mind, and we speak about it all the time. So we're just trying to work and improve how we can get the message out. So I'm happy to come and talk to you today. And we just had one that involved gold bricks. Can you imagine people ask you to make payments with gold bricks? So this poor woman got her call from the somebody was impersonating the federal government and basically saying that her bank account was being involved in money laundering, and actually kind of accused her. And so they were able to weasel her personal information out of her, and then they said, "Oh, yeah, you're right. It's not you." And we're actually working with Sergeant Hunt from the Lady Lake Police Department. He's helping us on this case, and the real bad actor is one of the bankers from your bank. And so what we need you to do is don't tell them, but we need you to take your money out, and we're going to help you put it into a safe location. And so she did that.
This is infuriating.
It's infuriating, and the bank even tried to convince her not to do it. And they had prompted her, said they're going to do that, but they don't want you to do it because they're involved in this bad transaction, and so we're investigating them, and so that's why they're going to be difficult. So stand up really strong. We're going to help you get this money. So they took some money from her, put in some bitcoins, like $35,000.
Some money? That's
some
like my
money.
whole
And then they went back again, and they got her to go take some more money out, and then they would have courier services come to her home and pick that up. And then at some point, the Bitcoin thing dried up, and they got another 40 grand and she was converting it into gold bricks. And it just happens over and over and over again. And that's, one where they involved pretending to be an agency. The other time it's, from a bank, and we just negligently put in $15,000 in your account by mistake. And if you don't give it back to us right now, we're going to charge you with some fraud. And they just take people down the road and same thing. So then next thing you know, money is exchanged in different accounts. And so we've had probably half a dozen in the last 6 months that are over $100,000, and it just breaks your heart, and it's very, very difficult to retrieve it.
It's so difficult to retrieve. I remember one time, I was like maybe 10 years ago, when it was like, oh, these are the tax guys, and you owe $3,000 from whenever ago.
Right.
And it just so happened, they didn't know that. They took a stab, and it just so happened that maybe a few years ago I had owed $3,000, but I had paid it right away. But I was even like, what? Because they say all the right things, and I'm super cynical, and I never believe anybody. And they even got me for about 5 minutes. And I thought, oh my gosh. So I can imagine when someone, especially let's say in the villages, there's a lot of people who have lost their spouse or a loved one, or they're by themselves, or their kids are away. They don't have people like me who live at home and can tell mom to,
Right.
This is not right. They're all alone. And so it must break your heart. We can talk about another example, but how do you, first of all, approach them? You must be just gutted.
So we are, right? And we want to teach empathy. Because really it's that connection and caring, right? And we do care, right? And so that's just one of the reasons why you asked me why I became a policeman, because we don't like bullies, and we don't like wolves that steal from sheep, right?
No, we don't.
So we don't. And so And you're so correct that it's, one spouse took care of the banking, now it's not, and then embarrassment sneaks in, right?
The embarrassment to the humiliation of,
Correct.
oh my gosh, I got conned and I can't have anyone else know. And
So-
they hide it, don't they?
Right, and so I speak all the time, HOAs, different community groups, whatnot, and we keep getting this message out, and when it still happens, right? I got one the other day when it was a call for my Wi-Fi service, and they were going down the road, and I could, if I wanted to pay for the full year, I could save, several $100s, and it sounded good. And it was usually around the time, and it was coincidentally about the time where I would re-up. And
Yeah.
you always kind of negotiate the fee. Sometimes
Sure,
there's any
of
deals
course.
out there. So I'm going down the road, and it sounded like, oh, this is good, and this is me. And so I said to the fella that I was going to think about it. Why don't you send it to me in an email? You have my email on your, and then he started getting hostile. And I'm like, Steve,
Yeah.
but he had taken me down the road for 15 minutes.
They're good.
The chief of police, right?
Yeah.
The smart one that knows about all these things. So, and if I'd
Exactly.
just given in, and he said, oh, no, it has to be done right now. So that's one of the things we tell people to guard against, right? So it's urgency is one of the big things that they'll throw in, and then don't tell anybody. That's the next thing they don't want people.
Don't tell anyone. Of course, that's the typical gaslighters program. So you had the one they called about the gold bricks. Is there another one that's floating around right now that you can talk about?
So this poor lady, she got a text, and it was saying that she'd been charged by Apple for $149, right? So next thing, then she'd be contacted. And sure enough, she receives the call. And the person said he's from the Federal Trade Commission, another one of these pretending to be, a government entity, and told her she was the victim of identity theft, and several of her cards and bank accounts have been opened in her name. And then he advised her to transfer $5,000 via Bitcoin, so she went to the ATM, and then you're not going in the best places sometimes when you're doing these Bitcoin transactions. They're not always in the best neighborhoods.
They're not.
And then she ended up speaking again. They needed another $9,000, so she did that, and then he was told her, okay, now we've got all this money, and now we're going to transfer it back to you to refund you, I think to the tune of just shy of $20,000, and then those calls didn't come, so she was out to $20,000, right?
And so she's out. I mean, gone are the days of the Nigerian prince, right? Remember
Correct,
that email
correct,
we got like
correct.
10
Yes.
or 20 years
Weren't those
ago?
the
And
best?
then
Yes,
now
truly.
it's so sophisticated.
It really is, and sometimes it's just to get a little bit of money over a
Yes,
long period of time,
for
right?
sure.
You see that a lot as well. So we're just telling people, hey, look, if people are asking you for payment from cryptocurrency, if they want payment from cards, gift cards, all of those things.
So those are the things you say: crypto, Bitcoin, gift cards. Any other tips like that could take them off, the path, or basically just anything. I tell my mom anything that sounds weird, because honestly, I'm not going to lie. Anybody over 75 is not rocking the Bitcoin 24/7.
No,
I'm sorry.
right.
So they're all frightened by it, and I mean, right? Isn't it?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
right? And so that's why they do it, because they know that it's one of the reasons, right? Obviously, it's a kind of a secretive way to do business,
Right,
but
of
also that
course.
people don't know what they're doing, so
Right.
they talk them through the steps. You go to this ATM, it's down at the local convenience store that's 24 hours that sells other stuff too. So you're in a sketchy
Yeah,
setting already,
right.
right? And so but it's always urgency, right? You got to do it right now. You can't tell anybody. Go get the gift cards, give us your account information, let's do Bitcoin transaction. And then this latest one is this gold brick scam, right? To go get gold bricks, and then they're sending courier services. So we're still actually kind of working a couple of those cases.
Good.
Old-fashioned detective work, because somebody came and picked this stuff up. So it had to
Right.
go someplace, right? So
Right. There's a trail.
Right. So,
So,
we're
Mom,
working
if you're
those.
listening, okay, Bitcoin and Chief.
And no
Hunt,
gold
this is great.
bricks.
And no gold bricks. So, I love that you're doing this, by the way, because the Village just has so many different community clubs and places, and they love speakers. So keep at it. I
Right.
love that. And also, let's bounce over a little bit to driving safety in golf carts. We don't have to go on and on about it, but there is a difference in that kind of community, correct? Where you're driving around and golf carts, and
Sure.
it's a different type of driving. So talk about like the safety aspect of that and how it's different.
It's different in the fact that obviously there are two low-speed vehicles, which are registered to be on roadways, and then obviously golf carts that can be in certain sections. Most of the villages allows golf carts, but then when you transverse onto public roads, you have to have different registrations, and the vehicles need to be different. But the rules kind of are the same. But it's amazing how impatient people get, regardless whether it's behind a golf cart wheel or or a car. Right? It's just slow down, be patient. Same rules of the road apply, and then if you combine a little. Right, little magic juice there at night. So just people to stay, within legal limits and still have a good time, but be considerate and thoughtful of where they're at. Yeah.
So big news with Lady Lake, and there was a routine traffic stop, and you've caught someone on the FBI's 10 Most Wanted.
Sure. So one of our sergeants on the police department, Michelle Bilby, she's a fantastic officer for us. She saw a car that looked out of place, right, and the license plate wasn't matched up just correctly. She pulled this car over, and then the person behind the wheel was somewhat secretive, and things didn't. He gave her a license, and it looked close, but not real close, and people were kind of sketchy in the car, and so they were investigating further. Technology is so amazing these days, right? So one of the other officers came, and we used a rapid ID. It's a fingerprint that you do in the field. And after a bit, we learned that this person was on the FBI's top 10 most wanted.
Wow.
And had a gun in the car, had avoided the police for almost 2 years, wanted for some pretty serious crimes in the central part of the country. And so it was.
And who's the officer involved?
So her name was Sergeant Michelle Bilbry, Corporal Andrew Eckert, and Jesse Pettis were all involved in this case.
Excellent.
So it was a squad that was working together collectively as a team, and they were able to take this guy into custody. And it was a crazy aftermath, right? So Elisa Papakota is our communications director, and so obviously we were flooded with media requests and a huge press conference, and so we brought a lot of great attention to the town of Lady Lake, and we got to share some of the great things that we're doing on top of that. And incidentally, it led to us getting a spot to send an officer to the FBI's National Academy.
Who are you sending?
So we sent an officer who just graduated last month. His name is Chaz Gersitz. He's a sergeant with us in CID, and hopefully we'll get another opportunity to send maybe one of the maybe Michelle will get a chance to go someday.
Maybe she will.
It's really hard to get into, and right now we're fortunate. We've had 5 officers that have attended it, but this was the first one from Lady Lake. So it's very, very competitive. It's hard to get a slot. And
I think that's down to good leadership.
Well, thankfully, as I was so thankful.
And all your new equipment.
all the stuff that comes in there, and that makes it an attractive place to work and to play. So we're thankful for all of that.
We're going to come right back with a little more. I'm going to have you stay. I want to talk about all the great things you've been doing in Lady Lake the last year or 2 or 3. Sure. And if you don't mind sticking around.
That'd be great. I'd love to.
And you stick around too. We'll be right back with Chief Steve Hunt of Lady Lake. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, everyone. We're here with Chief Steve Hunt of Lady Lake PD and Lady Lake in general. So you got here in 2020. You sort of took the helm about 3 years ago. First of all, talk about your fancy badge there, your centennial badge, and then talk a little bit about what's been going on in Lady Lake in terms of how you've sort of brought things up to your standard.
I'm really excited to talk about all things Lady Lake
I bet
PD.
you are.
So this year specifically is our 100-year anniversary for the town of Lady Lake. So 1925, and here we are in 2025.
Wow.
So we thought it would be fun to purchase and develop a new badge. So this is our centennial badge that was very similar to what they had back in the day.
Oh, I love that.
Not in size,
like a little vintage. I love it.
Yes, exactly. So, but the format, and it just 100 years, and it gives the years. And so we thought we authorized folks to wear that for the 18 months, a few months before and a few months afterwards, and show our celebration for the town. We're going to have a week-long celebration in this fall, November, to celebrate all the cool things that took place and being around for 100 years. So we're really
That sounds
fascinated.
fun. I'll have to check it out. Talk a little bit about sort of what you found when you got there. And never to disparage anybody, but it's always nice to have fresh ideas coming into any new job or any new department. Talk about what you found and sort of what your ideas were, and then how you brought those to fruition.
Sure. So when I got to Lady Lake, and Lady Lake's a fascinating community and a great town. The fact that they have no debt, they have the second lowest bill rate increase, so they've been fiscally extremely responsible. That being said, it was probably one of the lower paid police departments. They were struggling to
Motivate, maybe?
Well, yeah, to motivate, to keep, retain, to attract. We couldn't do it. So when I got to the police department, we are allotted at the time for 30 officers, and we were down to about 20. So they were 10 bodies short, and it was for a lot of different reasons. And so I looked at the problem collectively, and we kind of had a three-prong approach. So first it was equipment, and so in an effort to be transparent, I really put a big push to have body cameras. And then we looked at the dash cameras that we had. They were out of date, and they were not very contemporary in nature. And you'll see Axon is a big company that provides body cameras. You'll see that little Axon figure in all the police shows and so forth. And Axon, incidentally, owns Taser. So the Taser weapon is a company. So we talked to the commissioners about it, but it was a pretty significant fiscal ask, about $1 million to provide brand new dash cameras for all the cars, to have body-worn cameras, and then to upgrade the tasers all at the same time. We're able to bundle all three to kind of find some savings, right? Mm-hmm. And so we really wanted the body cameras so that we could show our side of the story, right? And to be transparent, for us to find, the good, the bad, and the ugly is what it shows. And what we found is it shows more good than bad, and very, very, very little ugly. But when it is ugly, we'll take care of that.
So you'll own it.
We'll own it, right. And we'll get rid of, we will whatnot, but we're also, occasionally there's people make mistakes, or we don't do it just perfect, but we show an awful lot of good. And many, many times, I used to tell people when they would be upset with a police officer, I'll say, well, I'll apologize to you on the behalf of whatever police department I'm working for if what you've told me is exactly the way it happened. Then when you go and look at it, and sometimes it wasn't always exactly the way it happened. And in a time period where we were so under the microscope, it's really important that the story be told accurately from the observation point of the police officer as it's taking place. And then you get to decide whether that was a reasonable action or not. And so we have found it is paid for itself over and over and over again because of the events that we're looking at. We did correctly, or we identified a training need, or we identified a need where somebody needed to be corrected. And we talk about gladiator mistakes because they're being zealous versus mistakes that are character flaws, right? So the character flaws we need to get rid of or modify or whatever the case may be. So that was the first big ask, and it was significant. It was sort of just a little shy of $1 million to do that. And the commissioners were fantastic. They kind of understood what we were trying to sell. And then it was a few other equipment things that kind of brought us up into contemporary,
modern day times.
Yes, and so, and then it comes into recruitment and retention, right?
Sure.
Because why would the police officer in Lady Lake want to be substandard and not have the equipment and the training and the development that an Orlando cop has, that a Tampa cop has, that some of the bigger communities have.
Right. So, and there are communities everywhere that they can sort of look at and say, hey, they have it. What about us?
Exactly, right? And because, we really have to prepare for the lowest common denominator. So that's one part of it, right, is equipment. So we kind of looked at revamping those things, and the commissioners were in the town, and the town manager were just wonderful in helping us achieve those things. So we got people's eyebrow up a little bit amongst the people that still were with us, but they were still one of the lowest paid departments. So, and as you know, 2-3 years ago in Leesburg, I think 3 summers ago, they went and did a campaign to start their starting pay at $61,000, right? And we're starting pay at $47,000. So very, very hard to compete with, a $14,000 starting pay, right, for a place that's 2 towns down. So we went to the commissioners, and matter of fact, we had 1 or 2 officers leave to go to better places because, financial considerations was a part of it. So we went to the commissioners, and after just receiving a 6% pay raise, about 4 weeks after that, I said, hey, look, I'm losing people and I can't attract people. This is what I'd like to do. I'd like to I said, I just left the state when we're making like $58,000 for starting. I said, that might do the job. Leesburg's down the road. You saw this went to 61,000. We're not as busy as they are, so maybe 60 is the number. And I said, but if you want to send a message, if you want to help me attract good people and keep the good people that we have here, why don't you show them that you care? And let's beat Leesburg by $1,000 and let's start pay here at $62,000. They looked and thought for a minute. And I said, now you have to do it for everybody. And at that time, it was a 30% pay increase, 30%.
Yeah.
And we just got a 6% one. And I said, you have to do it across the board. We'll have compression issues. So, and they banged that gavel quicker than you could imagine, right? They just did it,
so you
right?
can tell that they really support
They
you.
did.
Yeah.
So then, with leadership of the town manager, communications, HR, we went into a kind of a campaign to recruit across the country. So not only did we want to get people locally and within the state, but also see talents out there, because there are people like myself that were looking to move this beautiful, wonderful state that embraces its law enforcement and it's a fascinating place to live. So, and instead of targeting younger people, I really targeted folks that were kind of in my demographic that might have finished their career, that still had a few years left of the tank, and were caring, giving, servant-minded people. So that's what we went after.
And so how's that working out for you?
So it's worked out so well. We hired 12 people last year. We're at full staff with 32, with one person in the mix right now. And I share that with you and tell you, folks right from local, right? We've had a couple folks from Leesburg, a guy from, and some folks from Aventura down by Miami, right here in Ocala, and then across the country, Denver, Philadelphia, outside of Boston.
So do you feel like that sort of mix brings different perspective?
Without any question. So the folks so it's a nice blend of people that have had some big city experience, some people that had some small town experience, and we kind of targeted the person that's been on the job for a while. So
I don't mind, because I mean, I'm the same age. And so it kind of, what I'm saying is I feel like by reaching out to them, you're saying, hey, by the way, your career's not over. This is the perfect neighborhood for you, the perfect community for you. So, I mean, I think that's great. And I think that people are going to look at that in their when they're driving their little golf cart.
Right, exactly.
And say, oh my gosh, that I can relate to that guy. That guy knows me, and that guy cares about, what I do and where I've been in my life, rather than, I mean, young, of course, young is great, but rather than, 25-year-olds telling somebody like us what to do, I'm just saying I love the fact that you reached out to that.
We really have, and it's been, and they're so popular with that demographic because they've been around the block a little bit, right?
And they respect them.
And they're teaching our younger officers some of their maybe bigger city experiences, right? And that this is a wonderful place to work and all of that. So it has really worked. So those are the two components, right? So I tell you the third one is really about career development and caring and culture. And so we're trying to do all kinds of things that help folks develop in their profession, and also the things that are important, right? So we try to really have a mission that don't ever say, it's not my job, I can't help you. We can help. We might not be able to fix your problem. We can point you in the right direction. We can always show that we care. Because that's really the only thing that separates us from, you'll see in Florida, the sheriff's departments have a big display here, right? In lots of places, they've taken over these small communities with the sheriff's department. The difference is we can respond quicker usually because we're right there, and we can invest the time in showing that we care and going that extra mile where they're spread thin possibly and have to respond to call after call after call. We can spend some time with our folks. So that's important. But for me, I get to be involved in the career enrichment of people, right? And really, when I want to be measured, it's how did I make a difference in your life and in my life, right? And how do I help them to be better employees? But not only that, but to be a better spouse, to be a better parent, to be a better brother and sister, be a better neighbor. And then you get to run the police department on top of it. It's the cherry on top of the cake, right? So
it seems like the perfect fit for you.
I am, what the kids say, I am living my best life right now.
I love
right?
that.
So
it's never too late.
It's never too late. And so I'm just thankful for the opportunity. I really feel blessed to be in this position and to help in succession management as we, I don't want to stay here forever, right? So
Yeah.
I have a daughter that's going to college, so maybe we'll stick around for a little bit, but I've got a grandson I want to watch him play baseball. And so let's just work a day at a time. Let's make it better than it was, before we got here, and it truly is. And so I'm just so thankful. I could share with you for hours of all the cool things that we've done and where we're going.
Well, one cool thing you've done for me today is convince my mom that the Philippines are not going to fix her roof.
They are not going to fix their roof.
I appreciate that more
Right.
than anything. And I really appreciate you being here today, Chief Hunt. Can you tell our viewers and listeners where they can find any more information about the Lady Lake Centennial or the police department in Lady Lake?
We've got a great town website, so it's ladylakefl.gov.
Okay.
ladylakefl.gov.
Well, maybe if I'm out, at the gym in Spanish Springs, I'll see you.
That would be
wandering
great.
around.
And we're going to give you some
information.
information on our we have a new scam brochure that we can help you put that on your online as well.
Okay,
And so
perfect.
we're really sharing the town. So instead of having a police department page, we have one for the town, and then they do all the police stuff off that. And so that's a great resource for us. And also, the State of Florida Attorney General's Office, that website is fantastic as far as the newest and latest contemporary fraud scams.
Okay.
So that's a great resource, and it lists all the ones that they're seeing here in Florida, and it's always changing. So
the Attorney General's website
Yeah, for
has
the
a
state of
lot of
Florida.
information about fraud and scams.
Absolutely. So I kind of refer people to that one because it's always updated and fairly new for all the latest and greatest things. So that's a good resource for people.
Well, we appreciate you coming by today so much, and I hope to see you again around town hanging out.
That would be great.
You can come back anytime.
Super. Thanks for having me.
Thanks again, everyone, for joining us here on Healthy Living Central Florida. I'm Gina Horan. We'll see you next time.